Welcome back, guys. FM News Talk 97.1, Dave Glover Show, live in studio. I have my very good friend and client, Robert Hoffman from Hoffman Brothers Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Good to see you. How are you?
Hey, Dave. Great.
We also have Paul Munch, who we've not met, but we know each other through a mutual friend. He is president of St. Louis Paving. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave.
So, as I said to you guys out in the hallway, I understand the basics of this, what we're talking about today, but not the ins and outs. I'm just going to leave it to you. Folks, once they start talking, if you have a dog in this fight, you have an opinion, you want to cross swords, you want to give your comment, just call me at 314-969-9797, toll free from anywhere, 866-455-9797. So, received a long email from Robert, and if you could just kind of set the table for us, what issue you guys are here to talk about?
Well, last month, St. Louis County government passed Bill 289. And 289 basically gives the unions an advantage when bidding on county government work. It requires a Department of Labor apprenticeship program, which typically Department of Labor apprenticeship programs are what union contractors use, and typically non-union contractors do not. They use the trade schools and that kind of stuff. So basically, many non-union contractors are just flat out eliminated from doing St. Louis County work. There's another provision in the law that just seems kind of crazy. It says you have to have an apprentice in every trade. So let's say you're a small company with 4 employees. Maybe one's an apprentice and 3 aren't. One day, 4 years down the road, that apprentice graduates, he becomes a journeyman. And that's great for him, but all of a sudden now that company is no longer eligible to do St. Louis County work.
So you always need someone in the system.
Someone in the system, yeah. But as a small company, you don't always have somebody in the system. You may not need that extra person, but big contractors, big union contractors, would always have somebody like that in the system.
So I assume you guys, assume that there was a hearing.
Yeah.
And
so
you guys were there.
Yeah, we went to the county government building 2 different occasions. We told them, we wrote letters to the county government. It was really amazing that there were numerous minority contractors that got up one after the next, and they told the story how this is bad for their business. This is terrible for their business. Yet the 2 minority government officials voted against them in favor of big labor. And to me, it was a really sad day for St. Louis County government when that happened.
So was there a response? I don't even know what you guys are talking about. It doesn't have any benefit for the unions over you. Or was it, yeah, you're right, we don't care, we're going to do it anyway?
Well, it was a different response from each person. You know, Hazel Irby is a county council person from North County. She's a minority, and she had to vote first. And she was dead silent when it came to her turn to vote. It was like you could hear a pin drop in the room. And her first words were, I know this is not right. I know this is wrong. I met with Dooley and O'Mara, who's a pipe fitter in the Pipe Fitters Union, and Dooley, who always votes for whatever the unions want. She says, they guaranteed me they will fix it later, so I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the, by the way, Yafet El-Amin from MoCan Minority Construction Group just joined us. Hello. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Jump in anywhere you want. Very casual. What was the temperature like in the room? Was it incredibly tense?
It was tense, but as soon as you spoke out, they threw you out of the room. So they kept control.
Wow.
Yeah. So somebody spoke up one time, and bam, they were out. You know. So they there was police all over the place, and you couldn't do anything. Now the interesting was Dooley's reaction. He got up and scolded the audience. I mean, we're all citizens. We're here to express our interest. He scolded us for not telling him about this, and yet we all sent him emails. We were there at the prior meeting, told him about it, And then, he had this discussion with one of the other council person about it. So how he can say that this is the first time he's ever heard of this being an issue, I can't believe it.
So, Paul, talk to me practically how you as a business owner, how this affects you in bidding on public business.
Yeah, we're a classic example. St. Louis Paving has done hundreds of projects with companies like Boeing, Mallinckrodt, Monsanto, Solutia. And, these companies are extremely exacting in terms of determining who they're going to let bid on the projects, who they're going to give the projects to. They want to see strong safety records. They want to see strong financials, strong reliability records. And none of these entities have ever hinted at needing a Department of Labor sanctioned apprenticeship program. So this is ludicrous. About the only time you ever see something like this happen is when you have a union official who is elected to public office, usually with the help of a lot of union money, who then puts this thing up and pushes it through. And in the case of St. Louis County, we have 2 union business agents who are county councilmen. 2. And anyway, what people don't really realize, I don't think, is that when a union contractor gets a public job, and right now gets a St. Louis County job, 1/3 to 1/2 of every check that every worker gets who works on that job goes to the union, either directly to the union or to union affiliates like the Union Pension Fund or the Health and Welfare Fund. So now it doesn't really matter what contractor gets a job for the county, as long as they have this legislation that requires only union contractors, or all but requires union contractors to bid. Whoever gets the job, the union gets the money. And to me, that's a gross conflict of interest. I can't believe these guys haven't been called out on it.
Is this the first time a law like this has been passed? Is it based on another state's law? Are you familiar?
No, this has happened time and time again, St. Louis County, over the past 20 years. It started with the plumbing code. There was a time 20 years ago where majority of the contractors were union or non-union in St. Louis County. They passed this code that only union plumbing training programs are approved, and over time, I think there's 10 left in St. Louis, 10 non-union. They've completely eliminated it. Then they did the same thing with mechanical contracting, and I think it was 9 years ago that they started that. Now, we saw it coming. We got 45 contractors together, non-union contractors, and we sued St. Louis County. And as a result of our lawsuit, we were able to change the law that at least we can operate under the county's rules. But it's not the first time. They're slowly doing it and slowly eroding into their share.
You have to tell me how this new law affects minority-owned construction groups like your own.
Well, understanding that the majority of minority contractors are non-union, we are very concerned about how this piece of legislation will disproportionately impact this populace. We did testify to that extent, along with civil rights organizations such as the NAACP, who voiced their concerns as it relates to how this bill will impact those minority companies. We also have a very strong concern about the alienation of minorities and females within the business and construction trades. And so being that we have witnessed kind of a bottleneck system there, and that's still the remnants of that good old boy system, we are very much concerned that this bill will also have a negative impact on minority residents as well as female residents who live in St. Louis County and who pay into their tax dollars into the St. Louis County infrastructure. So we voice those concerns, and we believe overall that it will force less companies to be able to be competitive on those jobs, because the floor here is $25,000. So any bid that is $25,000 and above will have to have a registered apprenticeship program. We did prepare some amendment language that unfortunately was not introduced to look at things such as starting the floor at $5 million. So unfortunately, what we think will happen is that this will force more smaller businesses into having to pay into the union structure in order to work. And we believe that every tub should stand on its own bottom. So whether you are a union and not or a non-union company, you should have the ability to bid on work. And if your bid is lowest and most responsive, you should get an opportunity to work on projects that your dollars are paying for.
So, Paul, procedurally, where does it stand now? Is it, well, sorry, too bad, that's the law, and we'll good luck, or is there a way to bring it back up again?
Well, I think that's a great question. Right now, it's pretty much, sorry, you're out of luck. However, it could be brought up again. Somebody could propose legislation which would eliminate that little bit in the legislation and pass it again and get rid of the old one. But I'll tell you what the cause and effect is here. Tim Jones, our new House Speaker in the state of Missouri, did send them a letter, saying that this is not constructive and that we're going to have to take other looks at other ways to keep this kind of thing from happening. And just yesterday, I got a notice that he is now co-sponsoring right-to-work legislation in the state of Missouri.
Now, if it passed, would that automatically make this St. Louis County law null and void?
No, but what would happen is it would reduce or eliminate their motivation for doing this, because workers could opt out of being in the union, and so they would no longer be getting the money from this,
Gotcha.
And so they wouldn't be motivated to do it in the same way.
All the people out there in their cars listening, and they this hits them where they live, they have an opinion on it, they want their voices heard, what do? Who do they call? Who do they write? Who do they send an email to?
They can still contact their council people, because as a former legislator myself, each year, or each session, they will have an opportunity to reverse actions that, in fact, that they may have undertook that were not good for the community. So we encourage the community to voice their concerns and speak as to how they feel that this is an unfair piece of legislation. And this is really about taking an overabundant share of the market and designating it to one particular entity, and that's not right.
Yeah, it seems to me, again, even if you didn't take a side between union or non-union, it just seems like politics at its worst when you create a law. It's like a Venn diagram or syllogistic logic where only one group meets that standard. That you're just, look, we don't have that kind of apprentice program. It's not what we do. Oh, that's too bad. You should implement one. You're just SOL. Paul Munch, the president of St. Louis Paving, Yafet El-Amin from MoCan, and, of course, Robert Hoffman from Hoffman Brothers Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Thank you, guys. Very interesting, and I'm sure we will be hearing a lot more about this in the future. Be right